Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Ed Lecius. I'm the Community Policing Coordinator for the Nashua Police Department, and I also do emergency management for them. And we'd like to thank Principal Mary Francis for extending us her hospitality and that of the schools. We'd like to thank Lisa Laws of the PTO and Alderman-elect Sheehan for reaching out to us after the recent incident, and that got us thinking, and the reason we're here tonight for this meeting. I'll say at the outset that because the situation is still under investigation, we won't be able to talk about the specifics of what took place. But we're here to talk to you more about what you should be talking with your children in terms of being aware of their surroundings and some specifics along those lines. Also, we'd like to thank you for your interest and concern and for being here. Thank Father Kelly from St. Christopher's, but also who he's the chaplain for the Nashua Police Department. And we'd like to welcome Alderman-at-Large Dean, Alderman-at-Large Lori Wilshire, and thank them for their interest in being here as well and their support of the department. The first individual who's going to speak to you tonight is Sergeant Frank Bourgeois. Sergeant Bourgeois is currently assigned to the Youth Services Division, which would be one of the divisions that would be actively involved in situations like this. Right?
Hello, I see some familiar faces. I know we've spoken at some prior Crime Watch meetings before. As Mr. Lecius said, I work in the Youth Services Division at the Police Department, and we do a bunch of different things within that division. Predominantly, we investigate crimes that are against children or by children, and in addition to that, we also work with the Sex Offender Registry and the conducting compliance checks, as well as tracking missing juveniles and runaways, and also any gang-related investigations here within the city. By virtue of investigating juvenile-related matters, I guess the recent incident that happened here in the neighborhood is obviously of a concern to everybody, as it should be, and I wanted to kind of speak on that tonight and hopefully answer some questions in an effort to dispel any rumors or give you a little bit more of an accurate account of what took place. At the same time, I may not be able to answer some questions to maintain the integrity of the investigation, and if that's the case, then I'll tell you that we can't. But I guess the gist of it, as you may know from the press release that we did, was that on November 12th at about 8:30 at night, there was a 15-year-old female who is a resident of the French Hill neighborhood, and she went out for a walk that night. And in doing so, she was walking down Stock Street, and at which time she was approached by an unknown individual, and well, I guess we can entitle it as an attempt abduction. There was some physical contact with her where this individual tried to place her within a vehicle, and fortunately for her, that didn't take place. The suspect was unsuccessful. We did a bunch of things after speaking to her at length, and we went to press with it, obviously, to warn individuals or warn the community, warn everybody of what had taken place, and get extra eyes out there and in an effort to help us out. We also canvassed the neighborhood several times, speaking to residents in hopes to obtain as much information as possible on this. We also sent out a teletype New England-wide in hopes to find that there were a similar incident in some other community that we could correlate the investigation with that department in hopes to, with more information, the better. And spoke to several other agencies, and one of them being in Vermont, who called us, who had a similar type situation that we shared some information with. It's kind of the gist of it. As far as the suspect information, we really didn't have a lot to go on with this particular investigation, and all we could say was that it was a boxy type SUV is what the victim could tell us, and that she was approached from behind as she walked past this vehicle. The vehicle was on her side of the street as she was walking down the street, but it was facing the opposite way. So it was facing the wrong way on the section of the street that it shouldn't have been on. It should have been facing that direction if it were on the other side of the street. Hopefully that makes sense. And she was approached from behind, and the individual attempted to put her into the vehicle unsuccessfully. And she then went to a resident, reported it, and ambulance showed up and the police showed up, and that was the beginning of the investigation. But I guess my point being is that we really didn't have a lot to go on this. Unknown if it was a male or a female. Believe it was a male based on, she said he was very strong, or the individual was very strong. Unknown, white, black, Hispanic. Fleece gloves was all we had. No height, no weight, and then again, going back to the boxy type vehicle with a leather interior. So really didn't have a lot to work on. We are still working on it as we speak and speaking to other agencies, and anything that would be helpful to us that we could put together, that would be great. That's kind of the gist of it right there. I wish I had more information for you, but what I have for you is basically what we were given that night, and as you can see, it's not a hell of a lot. Is there any questions thus far that I can answer for you? We reached out to several other departments. There was, as you know from the media, there were some incidents in Bedford and Manchester. There really wasn't any reason to believe that those were connected to what occurred here in Nashua. We also spoke to a trooper out in Vermont who called once he saw the teletype, and we shared our information with him, and there's no reason to believe that that individual that did something similar out there was related to what had occurred here in the city. So what we have right now is an isolated incident, although we won't rule out that this may have occurred somewhere else, and the investigation is ongoing.
So they never spoke to her or anything? This person never?
No, there was nothing said. No, I wish there was. Every little bit helps us, as you know, and we have very little at this time. No, there was no communication whatsoever. Anything else I can answer for anybody? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a comment. I know I work with kids, and I see kids walking the neighborhood with their iPods on and texting, and they're really not aware of their surroundings. And that kind of, startles me, because someone could approach a kid that
Absolutely.
like that, and they'd be, unaware of what was really going on around them.
Yeah, we could really go on for a while with safety, from safety on the street to safety in the schools to internet safety. We could go on for hours on that. One of the safety things we would discuss if we were doing so is exactly what you just pointed out. That, when you're out and about in the street, and I tell both of my daughters this, you have to be aware of your surroundings. When you're on your iPod and it's blaring in your ear, and at the same time you're text messaging somebody, you're walking down the street, you really don't know what's going on around you. And unfortunately, we live in a society where you have to know what's going on around you. I wish that wasn't the case, but that's nothing that any of us have any control over, or have a very limited control over. In addition to that, I guess, the car facing the wrong direction on that street should have been a little bit of a red flag, but that's no negative, comment towards the victim. She shouldn't have to worry about which way a car is facing on the street. She should be able to feel safe walking down the street. And, and the other thing is, like I tell my kids, if you're walking down the street, walk closer to the house side of the street than you do to the car side of the street. And if somebody does try to grab a hold of you, then fight, scream, kick, and yell, and draw as much attention to the situation as you can. And once you're within that vehicle, now your probability of things working out in a positive manner are significantly diminished. So that's just some safety points that I could allude to given this situation.
Did it happen in front of the house that she went into, or was that just the first house she came to that had a light on?
It did not happen in that was not the house that it happened in front of. Your first reaction when something like that happens is to run away and create distance. And so there was a little bit of a distance before contact was made at that residence. So, no, it wasn't that house, but very, very close to it.
Did she elaborate if she did yell and scream and kick and fight and other neighbors turn on lights and then it wouldn't?
She was yelling is what she said, and we spoke to some of the neighbors, and we spoke to all the neighbors. We actually went through the neighborhood 3 times and to speak to people. And as far as what was substantiated or whatnot, I'm going to hold off comment on that right now. But yeah, she did. She did all the right things. Yes, ma'am.
Can you actually, does anyone actually hear if that's, all the windows are closed, it's starting to get cold, outside. Can you actually hear somebody?
In an area like Stock Street, I would, I bet you if we went out there right now and hid in the bushes and one of you started yelling, I would bet you would definitely hear it. We on a major street like Kinsley Street or West Hollis Street, and you have more foot traffic, you have more people yelling at each other and some cars going by it, then people are less likely to maybe look out the window. But I think on Stark Street, it wouldn't take much for you to draw some attention to yourself. Anything else before I turn it over to Lieutenant Fisher?
The internet ahead of time, are they somehow related or knew she was walking? I mean, Frenchville is over that way and she's walking over here.
Yeah, no, there was, she was just out for a walk and no, there was no reason to believe that there was any communication with her or anybody else via the internet. I mean, you have your text messages and things like that, but we spoke to several people who, she had been in communication with prior to and after as part of the investigation, and this just appears to be an isolated incident. And
You think it's like a random time of opportunity? Did you get?
Opportunity being a good word there. Did this person go out and with the intent of attempting to abduct somebody, or was it somebody, an opportunist, that they were sitting there in their car for whatever reason, and here's a girl going by, and she's kind of in her own world doing her own thing, and he tried to take advantage of that. I guess we won't know unless we make contact with the suspect. A lot of people don't go out with the intention to be thieves. Some people go down the mall and they look over and somebody left their car unlocked with their bags there. They're opportunists. Yeah, they're still thieves, but they took advantage of an opportunity that was presented to them. They didn't go there with the intent to steal those bags. They went there with whatever their intent was to go to the mall, but took advantage of an opportunity. What was behind this? Was it something planned, or was it an opportunity that this individual had based on the circumstances that were placed in front of him? Again, we can't answer that until we speak to the suspect. Yes?
I don't know if there was rumors, but that this person was hiding in the bushes, or I've heard two stories, one that they were in the bushes and one that they were in the car. I mean, is there anything that...
And that's one of the great reasons why I think, or one of the reasons why it's a great idea to do something like this, because it does dispel a lot of rumors. No, the guy jumping out of the bushes, I think that's something that we dealt with, or I dealt with as a kid back in the 70s, where, the fears we had was that the guy in the white van, the box van, or the guy jumping out of the bushes. That doesn't, no, nobody jumped out of any bushes or anything like this. The suspect was directly tied into that vehicle, and at what point he got out or at what point he approached her, we know it was in close proximity to the time she passed the vehicle, but he was believed to be within that prior to her walking past it. Anything else I can answer for anybody? Okay. Thank you. I'll turn it over now to Lieutenant Fisher, Lieutenant Fisher with the Services Division. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Okay. I'm here just wearing a couple hats. Number one is the concerned person. Some of you in this room are my friends and called me at the police department, which is some of the reason why I'm here. Also to facilitate these people being here, and also to talk a little bit about what happens in an incident like this. This was handled just the way we normally would. But some questions came up after this happened. What would you do if this really did happen? Do you have stuff in place? We are a member of a network. If this really did happen, we would be able to do some things, I think, that would give you at least some feeling of confidence. We are a member of a child that's missing, which is a reverse dialing system that we set the parameters on. If we lost a kid in Nashua, and we have used this, it will ring all the phone numbers in a matter of minutes within a parameter of blocks that we set, normally about 10 blocks. So we do have the ability, if this happens, because timeliness is important, that it's a direct dial-up from the supervisor's cell phone in the car, and we can do this. And I say that only to give some folks that call with concerns confidence about a game plan, that our folks are trained in this, and if we do have an incident like this happen that is successful, that we have the tools to our avail to get this done. Other things that happen when things like this happen, people reach out for resources. Who do we call? What do we do? And the only things I've talked to my friends who had concerns about stuff like this, when things like this happened, some of my favorite sources we use in in police work. Gavin DeBecker's book, The Gift of Fear, and understanding fear, understanding distance, and people's reluctance, or how you create reluctance to be involved in something like this helps. Being able to talk to young people directly about this. The adage is, if you're afraid to talk to your children about something that makes you uncomfortable about an incident like this, then they're too young to walk alone. Because you have to have the ability, and you have to be willing to talk about things like this with young people in order to empower them in these situations. That's one of the big three. Have that ability. If somebody ever tells you don't yell, yell. That it's okay to rebuff adults. Because a lot of what we tell our young people is, you always do what adults tell you to do and be compliant. And until you're ready to tell your kids that they've got to be able to resist what an adult will tell them to do or try to get them to do that they know is wrong, if you haven't had that discussion with them, they're too young to be out on their own. That's kind of the big three. And I just throw that out because there's some of the things I've said to people who have called after this happened. The last source and my favorite book on the subject is a book called Protecting the Gift. And if you don't have it, if you're concerned about this and you want to do something for yourself, pick up the book. I don't think you'll be disappointed. It's not a scary, scary book, but it talks a lot about how to talk to young people about these things. It talks a lot about babysitters. It talks about any issues that have to do with keeping young people safe. So those are some of my favorite sources. But I'm mostly here to give support to Frank for coming and talking to you folks about this case, and to give you confidence in cases like this that the police has a response. And just from the number of people in this room, you should have confidence in that. Number of our civic leaders, police officers who work in this area, and concerned parents. Does anybody have any specific questions that Detective Sergeant Bourgeois wasn't able to answer, or that I could answer for you, about what the police does, what we do administratively in a situation like this, what the police officers are trained to do in a situation like this? Thoughts, concerns? I know it's warm. Shoot.
Given the current economic situation, do you think we may see a little bit of other cases, or is it something that...
I read something on national crime statistics recently about some of the false beliefs that people get more desperate and create more type 1, those are called type 1 or type 2 index crimes. Forgive me for jumping over to police nomenclature, but the serious assault type of stuff, that there is no facts to go along with that sometimes the property crimes do increase. And I was looking for that. I teach at Revere College part-time, criminal justice, and I was looking because that came up in class, and I had several students talking about it. And I said, go out and find out, and I'll see what I can find out. And there is nothing to support that. But we've noticed, Nashua, I think we had the last few years, we've not varied very greatly. They say if you're within 3% of where your crime rate was the year before, you're pretty much staying even, up or down. And that's where we've been, as many of our civic leaders know, as they hear us talk about. So I guess that's a long answer to your short question. I don't anticipate that, and we haven't seen it. And I looked for some stuff nationally, but I constantly see it on the news as if it's fact, that we're going to have an increased crime rate because of our economic climate. But we haven't seen it here in Nashua. Sure. Anybody else? Thoughts, questions, concerns?
From a presence standpoint, the neighborhood, extra vehicles, extra undercover, what do you guys do in a case like that?
I don't want to compromise their investigation, but rest assured, there's not a person at the police department. Nashua's small enough. There's not a person at the police department doesn't know about this, about the response to this, and about the necessity for not only what we're doing actively, but the perception of what we do. As they say, as Gates said in LA, it's not just necessarily the crime itself, it's a perception of crime and the necessity to react to stuff like this and to have an increased presence. But we're pretty fortunate in that we do have the resources to do that, and these folks do have what they need to do this investigation. So without ruining what they're doing, I think we have what we need, and I think that several of you, if you've been looking out your windows a little more, should have seen a little more action, so to speak.
I guess in regard to that, other things that we can do as citizens to help you guys on a day-in, day-out basis.
Well, I hear my friends Ed and Joe, who do the Crime Watch circuit regularly, talk about call, call, call. And you're not ever going to hear, you should never hear, and our officers, I'm sure, would wave and say, please call. The more frequently we get the calls, the more, some of the biggest crimes are solved with some of the smallest pieces of information. And some of the folks we talk to at places, when we're looking at people whose behavior is not right where we want it, a lot of times it's just the street officers contacting and doing a field contact card with the person. And if we can show a stretch of behavior, they can put themselves on the radar screen pretty quickly. But they can't, because if people don't call. So thank you for asking that question, because it gives me the opportunity and to take Joe's stage here for a second, just say call, call, call. Other questions, thoughts, concerns? Any other questions, thoughts for Mr. Licious, Sergeant Bourgeois? We're good? The cops that work the route happen to be standing in the back of the room too. You guys can give them a little wave, a little golf wave. So we have an interest, and when I walked in tonight, this wasn't pre-choreographed. I talked to those guys, I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they go, well, this is our area. We want to know if there are some concerns, they want some questions, so we wanted to be here. So when they just heard Mr. Licious sign out here on the radio, you know, we didn't orchestrate that. That's the culture at the National Police Department. We're pretty fortunate with that. So these folks are here for you. We're here for you. If anything, I want to leave you with that nod of confidence. If that's it, I'll let you escape, but we'll also stay here for a while. And before we leave, I would also like to thank Mrs. Tintle once again for having us here at Mount Pleasant. That was very nice of our Mount Pleasant folks to roll out the red carpet. So, thank you.
I'll just make one quick pitch while we have you here. We have currently two active crime watch groups here in the north end of Nashua. One is the French Hill Crime Watch, which meets on the first Tuesday of every month in the Dental Connection building at the corner of Cross and Lock Streets at 7 p.m. And the other is the Chester Street Area Crime Watch, and they meet on the first Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. at Temple Beth Abraham Synagogue. And certainly you're more than welcome, and I would encourage you to attend either or both of those if you're so inclined, to just find out what's going on in the neighborhood and in your area, and how you can be more effective. And to just reiterate what the lieutenant said, anything out of the norm, you live here. You know which vehicles should be around, which ones shouldn't be around. Call us, suspicious vehicle. You see somebody during the day, during the early evening hours, or even late at night, walking the neighborhood in a strange way, like they're checking out a house or casing a house. Call us. We're here 24/7, 365 days a year, and the officers don't mind. And if it turns out to be nothing, so be it. But they'll at least stop and ID the individual walking, so if something does occur in that area after, we'll have an idea of where to start looking. So again, I can't reiterate the importance of calling, and you can call the regular number, 594-3500, and you do not have to give your name. You're going to be asked for it. You don't have to give your name, but certainly it helps us to follow up if you are willing to give us your name and a contact number so that we can get back to you. And if you do want to know what the officers find or don't find, you can tell the dispatcher that you'd like to see an officer after they investigate what you're calling about, and they'll be more than happy to stop by and see you. So again, thank you all for being here, and we also want to thank the Nashua School District they recorded this, so it'll be shown on Channel 99 periodically so that we can share your willingness to step up and ask for this meeting with the rest of the city. Thank you very much.